Bender, I think I didn't send you the producer one. I thought I did. See, this is the stuff that I edit out every time. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Kodiak Shack podcast. Today, we have Samuel, Baldy, and Croc from the Guns Garin Memorial Foundation. Sam is a consultant for the organization, and then Baldy and Croc, we hung out at McIntyre when we were all there partying in South Carolina, and then now Croc has left. But thanks, everybody, for being here. And then in whatever order you prefer, go ahead and tell us about yourself. It's not a trap.
All right, Vader, thanks for hosting GGMF today. We're looking forward to talking through what we're doing and excited about telling people about how they can join our mission and what our mission actually is. So Vader gave the introduction. We flew together at McIntyre for a couple of years, deployed together while Guns was still there. And I've since moved to Fort Worth and am running GGMF in a part-time role, and then still in the Air Force Reserves and fly for American Airlines as well.
Sweet.
Nice, Baldy.
And I'm Baldy Thompson, first name Zach, and same story. So obviously, yeah, Vader and I and Croc all flew together back in the day. Then my first deployment was with Vader. We were on the Forgotten Crew night train. Good times.
Night train's the right train.
Yeah. So obviously Viper pilot, and then I founded the GGMF with Croc, and been kind of doing that for a couple of years now. And then also recently just got hired by Delta Airlines, so rocking the 3-job kind of expedition here. So there you go.
Nice,
Still
congrats.
back there. Thanks.
Sam, send it.
Yeah, you got it. I'm Sam. I've known Croc for about 20 years now, and born out of our friendship, got introduced to GGMF and was instantly captured by just the story of Guns and his wife Kelly, their kids, and then the way that Guns' brothers and men around him rallied around to take care of his family after he was gone. Joseph or Croc asked me to jump in and be a part of what's going on there in whatever way I could. So basically, since the beginning, I've been close at hand with Croc, pitching in all the ways that I can. And I've worked in the nonprofit space and have for several years now, and love seeing organizations grow to their full potential. And so I'm honored to be a part of what's going on there, kind of as an independent consultant, but I work in the administration and operations capacity with Croc and Baldy.
Nice. Well, I appreciate all you guys being here. When Croc kind of reached out and said like, hey, you want to, let's talk about, the GGMF and Kodiak Shack kind of working together. And I was over the moon. I mean, for everybody who didn't know Guns, I mean, he was an awesome dude. I mean, he was a patch that you loved to have because he was dedicated, he was motivated, he was hardworking. But then he was also one of the dudes who understood that you're not going to be as good as him, So he wasn't mad at you for being bad at your job. And he was hilarious. I mean, I still remember stuff he would tell me. One of the things he told me, we were at Taco Time off of Garner's Ferry. And I am just powering through corn, like the tortilla chips. And he's like, every 4 chips is a corn tortilla. And I was like, you ruined my life. Like that was the worst thing you could have told me. And that, if he ever saw me like eating anything, some trash food, he'd be like, hey, a moment on the lips, but forever on the hips. And I was like,
Yeah.
He was just hilarious. I mean, he was just a wonderful dude to interact with, to work with, and then be friends with. And so it was pretty tough hearing that he passed away, and especially in the way that he did. I was in New Mexico, and I still remember that Croc called me. I was at the gym. I was just finishing up a workout, and he called me and passed words at what happened. And so I was like, hey, I'm going to go back, I'm going to go back to South Carolina. And at the time, the base policy was if you leave the state, you can only leave one time, and then you have to quarantine for 10 days, and you can't go on any more vacations for the year. So you effectively get one trip out of the state for the year. And so I couldn't go. And I was, if the nail wasn't already in the coffin and me leaving the active duty Air Force, that definitely sealed the deal. So it was, that was crappy. I assume it was even more difficult for you guys when you guys were obviously still in the squadron and, around every day.
Yeah, that was one of the challenges with, going through that time, like right in the middle of like kind of the worst parts of COVID and having that happen. It was like, Guns had dedicated the majority of his life within the squadron to building like a brotherhood, like everyone was, very tight knit, and everyone was a big part of each other's lives. And then due to the circumstances with COVID, he passed away, and being able to have that like community put back together was almost impossible at the time. It was, honestly, one of the toughest things when Baldy and I were talking about it. We were like, dude, like this sucks, man. Like everything that he had built, it wasn't able to come together due to the circumstances. And that was one of the first conversations we had to start this organization, as a lasting memory of that brotherhood that he had created, and to have an organization that could always, no matter what, be able to help people that were going through hard times like, we were in the middle of, where, his bros couldn't even come out to the funeral because, everyone had to quarantine, or, you couldn't travel, or just, due to the rules of the circumstances at the time. But it was one of the things that spurred our first conversations in starting the foundation, so.
Yeah. And how does that look like? Obviously you have a wonderful idea in trying to kind of, remember Guns and do something, that's broad ranging. That's much more beyond than, it's wonderful helping Kelly and the family, but even now doing all the things that you do for so many families, like how do you go from an idea to reality there?
Yeah, I think Baldy could talk to the idea. The original idea was a golf tournament, and McIntyre was our third assignment together, and so we had done a couple like charity golf tournaments, and like we knew what the need was. The need of veterans and their families being taken care of is never going to go away. You see it just within that nonprofit space of other nonprofits that exist solely just to take care of veterans and their families. And this was I would say the first thing in my military career where I saw that need like firsthand, with like Kelly and her two kids losing Guns. It was like, man, like this is real. Like someone has to be able to take care of them. And lucky for her, like she had the community to take care of her, but not everyone's like that. And so one of the first conversations Baldy and I had was like, dude, I think it is exactly what Guns would want, to have a foundation that's set up to take care of people that are going through hard times within this space. Baldy can talk to the golf piece and kind of like the evolution of the first conversation to like where we ended up. I don't know. What do you have to say on that?
Yeah, so, it's whenever you deal with something like this, this is, your first reaction, I feel like for most people is like, well, okay, what can I do? Like, how can I, like, what do I do now? Like, where do I put my next foot forward? Like, which direction am I going? How do we help Kelly and the family? And Guns was such a loved individual by everybody, it seemed like. And, you guys were talking about the COVID keeping you from traveling and the circumstances of the time. It's funny how so many people took time out of their schedule to like gather everybody that knew him from around the world. They sent in videos basically in place of themselves, which just goes to show like the character of who he was. So kind of we, with talking with Croc when this first happened, we both kind of like looked at each other and were like, what can we do? And there was like a GoFundMe going, to like help Kelly and the family and things like that. But we kind of we wanted to do something. So the initial idea was literally just to, maybe we can raise more money and put that into the pot and help out the family that way. And we don't really know like which direction it's going to go or what necessarily we're exactly going to do, but we want to do something. So like you said, like Croc was saying, we had done golf tournaments before, and my brother's on the PGA Tour, so we've used his kind of persona to kind of to help fundraise before. We worked with like the Wounded Warrior Project before, and we've had success doing it. So we were like, well, maybe we can do this. The kicker at the time was we needed to do it quickly because just with the timing of everything, and it was kind of end of summer getting to fall, it takes a lot of time to like plan and organize and do something very quickly, obviously when you weren't expecting to have to go through something like that, right? So it took a lot of work initially, but we kind of decided to do this golf tournament to see how successful we could be at and what kind of funds we could raise, and it ended up being a huge success. And in my opinion, I think that's mostly due to the fact of who Guns was, in my opinion, right? Because we had so much support. It wasn't because of us or my brother, it was because of who he was, right? And then from there, we kind of decided that we didn't really want to stop. So it was something that we ended up enjoying and thought that, we want to create something that's not just like, the fundraising support for Kelly and the family, like Croc was saying, Kelly has a great family around her and great support network, and not others do. And, Kelly actually kind of helped us steer the ship a little bit and was like, to help us go down the direction of a foundation. And we kind of took it that way, and we're like, let's do it again. Like, let's do it again next year. Like, what other support can we get? Like, why stop now when I feel like we have something that could be so good? And on top of that, it's for such a good reason, right? Guns' kids are little, obviously grown up a little bit now, but something that they can look back and remember their dad with, an organization that does hopefully all the good things that makes them proud of their dad. So, we have pivoted all throughout the way with what we are focusing on and how we fundraise and what we're trying to do, and expanding the scope of our projects, and then to bring people like Sam in to help out with the aspects that we don't know, content creation and marketing and how to efficiently run a nonprofit organization now that we've gotten to a point where, we need some help. So, it started out as a simple golf tournament just to try and like do something. And now here we are, which is one of the things that I think is really cool about the organization as a whole. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the cool things about that is, so when we did the first golf tournament, we had a conversation quickly after that was like, man, like people are responding to the story of who Guns was and the legacy that he's left. I mean, he spent his entire life building this legacy. And I called Sam pretty quick after that first golf tournament and said, dude, I think we need to start like a foundation, but I know nothing about running a nonprofit. Like, this isn't, if we're going to do this, this is not just a golf tournament. This is like, people legitimately are responding to the legacy that Guns left, and we need to tell the world like this story. How do we do it? And that was one of the first conversations we had with Sam, trying to bring him into the fold, to say, man, we had a pickup game. Like, we made up a game plan. It was like your best last minute 4VX DCA game plan, and it like worked. You know what I'm saying? Like, it worked, and we're like, dude, we need to replicate this. but we had already erased the boards, and we're like, dude, what was the game plan? Other than just a pickup game at the time. So we wanted to bring people in like Sam that could make the model sustainable.
Yeah, I think one of the things that just is very apparent to me, having known guns, is that the joy and the happiness that guns brought to us as friends and coworkers. Now other people get to experience that, not directly from guns, but just from the foundation, providing them that happiness and the joy that they get to experience by the foundation providing them things in their time of need. So I think it's so fitting that this was created and has taken off in the way it did. So Sam, can you kind of just talk about kind of your experience in the foundation and just kind of nonprofits in general? Cause obviously you're the resident expert here.
I'm far from an expert. I've got some experience. Probably most of my experience is centered around what not to do. So hopefully I'm able to bring that to the table for these guys. But quite frankly, when it comes to, programming and events, that's not my specialty. I'm really grateful we've got Baldy, and we've got Baldy's brother, Michael Thompson, and Croc, of course, guys who are focused on the programming and really what to do with the money once it's been raised. But fundraising is kind of where I come in. And the term in the nonprofit world for fundraising I prefer is donor development. And really that's just relationship development, and it's relationship stewardship, if you will. So my favorite thing about working in the nonprofit space, especially for GGMF, is just taking inventory of all the people who have been impacted by Gunn's story, or have been impacted by his family, or guys like Croc and Baldy who knew him, and learning what does it look like for them to be involved in this organization. And certainly the most profound or prevailing needs are, we want people to donate money so we can instantly disperse that, or not instantly, but as quickly as possible, and get it to people who need it. And so my job effectively for the organization, at least as it stands today, is to be creative about ways to steward those relationships with people who have shown interest in the organization, and then in turn educate them on what they're investing in, what they're giving toward. So a lot of my day-to-day has to do with, like Baldy said, content creation and design. It has to do with data management and data health, making sure we've got accurate information for all the hundreds and probably in time thousands of people who will have invested in this organization. So it's a blast. I mean, it's at times it feels a little bit nerdy, and there's things about it that feel tedious, but without that component on the operations administrative side of the organization, we can't take the call from the widow in California who needs to buy groceries for her kids. And so it's the biggest joy, really has been the biggest joy of this year for me, to get to hear the testimonies from Croc or Baldy saying, hey, we just got to help really like buy groceries for this lady who just lost her husband who was in the military. I mean, that's like, I would do that for free. I mean, I would do this kind of work for free. And honestly, I have for a while. I mean, it's just a joy to get to help out in the way that I am. I'm blabbering here, but I hope you get the idea. It's a blast. So, and
I mean, it's got to be definitely fulfilling there. And for all those that don't know, and maybe one of you three can elaborate, but for people who don't understand, sadly, this happens very frequently, especially in the flying community, how often there are people who die in and out of airplanes that are in the military. And so it's wonderful that organizations and foundations like this exist because, when you're in the community, if it's F-16s, you pretty much hear about every F-16 crash. And if you're in the Navy or the Marines, in their rotor wing communities, they probably hear about all of them. But when you combine them all and you know how frequently this happens, it's tough. It helps you understand the gravity of what, pilots are doing on a day-to-day basis. But what would you guys kind of say, just having been in there and seeing the amount of people that need assistance?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the biggest motivator for myself was within 6 months. So we hosted that first golf tournament within 4 months of Guns passing away. We raised a little under $30,000 at that golf tournament, which was awesome. Um, the sad part and really the sobering part at the end of the day was within 6 months of us doing that golf tournament, we had committed $25,000 of that money back out to people who needed it. And like our reach was like next to nothing. Like at that point, like we hadn't brought on Sam, we hadn't brought on like anyone that was doing like any sort of social media for us. We hadn't been advertising. Like those were just people that we directly knew that were in need of help. And it was, you know, any story you could think of a family, a veteran, a military family that was in need that we were like instantly giving those donations back out to. And I remember like having the conversation with Baldy. I'm like, dude, like if we're going to do this, man, we got to get serious about it because the need is there. Like the need's not going away, man. And we got to figure out like, it's got to be something more than just an annual golf tournament. Like we got to figure out how to communicate this to other people. That way we can consistently fundraise because the need is going to be very consistent for like the entire year and we're going to run out of money like really quick. And that's where Sam came in. And it was probably one of the first serious conversations we had after that golf tournament was like, he's like, dude, what's your mission? And we're like, we're going to take care of veterans and we're going to like inspire people to fly. Because those are the two things Guns love to do. He
Yeah.
loved taking care of his bros and he loved flying. And I remember it was kind of laughable at this point, but he's like, dude, that like, I don't think that's going to work. Like those are two different missions. And I'm like, dude, hear the story of who Guns was, and then let's just make it work. And the fact is we have made it work, and we've made it work because people respond to the story of who Guns was. He was a fighter pilot who was dedicated to excellence, and he loved like taking care of those around him. And that's really all we're trying to do. We're trying to take care of veterans and military families, and we're trying to inspire people to love aviation as much as he did, you know? So I don't know from your perspective, Baldy, if it was any different than that, but the need has never gone away. The need has only grown over time, I would say.
I mean, yeah, no, I mean, it was kind of comical when we first again started. We were like, you know, our goal was to basically like raise enough money to pay for the golf tournament, you know, like set the bar low, right? And then it was successful, and then, you know, and then we made that money, and then like there was an immediate need, and it just felt like it kept going, and we're like, we have to do something. Like we have an opportunity here, right? And so, what do we do about it? And that's where, you know, Croc was saying, like we kind of sat down and had a conversation about it, like, you know, like, you ready to do this? Let's do this. Like, let's get at it. And you know, and it, I feel like when it came time to bringing Sam on board and kind of further expanding the scope of our operation, it was really because the need kept growing. Like we would like raise more money, and it's like, well, now there's all this need, and then, you know, it was like it was just kind of surprising how much need there actually was out there. And it felt like we had a really cool niche opportunity as a nonprofit with the story of who Guns was, that I feel like we could use his legacy really to kind of do a lot of great things in those two different mission sets, which are, I mean, up front, like they're very intrinsically different, right? If you ever go to an MBA school and go to business school, they're like, pick one thing and stick with it. You know, if you need to pivot, go ahead and do it. But we're picking something that really embodies who he was. Like Croc was saying, I mean, those are the two things that meant everything to him, was taking care of, you know, his friends and family, and then flying. And I feel like that's something that has resonated with a lot of people. And I feel like with Sam's help, thank God he's here, but like, you know, that it's just continuing to grow for us, and we're continuing to be able to help people again, helping people in California. We never thought in a million years that would, become a thing, right? That the scope would have that kind of a reach, and the need is there. And, it brings us a lot of joy to be able to do it. So.
Well, it's wonderful that it has expanded. It's not a South Carolina thing. It's a United States thing. It's a beyond it. It doesn't have a limited reach. It has a unlimited reach in the way that you can affect people's lives and provide them that guns experience. And so for the people kind of on the flying side stuff, what have you kind of been able to do to get people exposure to the aviation world?
Yeah, so we've given out 15 scholarships, flying scholarships. So it's all to basically underprivileged youth is kind of the term that we use. It's kids that would never have had the opportunity to learn how to fly without having the financial support of someone outside of their own means. And so we take applications every year, and we review the applications, and Kelly and the board of directors are the ones who basically pick who those scholarships go out to. It's been cool because you see people from all different walks of life. You see really young enlisted people that are interested because they're a crew chief on the airplane. You see, kids that are in high school coming from broken homes that are just dude, I want to learn how to fly. I want to be a pilot one day. You see, kids that have been, I say kids, but people that have been working at it their whole life, but never had the money to be able to do it. And so we've kept up with all their stories, and it's awesome seeing the first 2 scholarships we gave. And that was pretty quick after the golf tournament. Both those guys just soloed, and one is got his apps in for regionals right now. So he's trying to get hired by a regional. He's trying to get hired, by the Guard or reserves. He thought about going into active duty, and we were like, no, don't do it.
That's mentorship comes along with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's been cool, man. To see those stories evolve. Sam can talk to that a little bit, building the brand. That was one of our biggest challenges is how do you build a brand that's dually focused? We have 2 different things that we do, and we want to do both of them well. So people reach out on the flying side and on the veteran side, but it's only because of the brand and how they built it. And that's a whole nother animal right there. How do you build a dually focused brand that clearly communicates your mission,
Yeah, Sam, how does that challenge suit you? What has it got you busy with?
Yeah, well, when I figure out how to get it done, I'll let you guys know. We can do another episode.
Yeah.
No, I think Croc hit the nail on the head early on when we talked about it. When I first gave him pushback is, look, it's if we're going to continue to sustain this organization, leveraging Gunn's story, which I think is the right play, and I think it's a dynamic enough story that will, it's one that will stand the test of time, in my opinion. At least the values that he lived by and lived for. Then I think it's fair to be a kind of a dual mission organization. If we need to pivot down the road, I think that will become apparent to us. But the bottom line is being clear and outspoken about what we do and what we're about. So we don't hide from the fact that we're very, very, very much in support of veteran families in need, and we don't hide the fact that we're very much in support of youth, pursuing aviation education opportunities. So I think just being clear from the get-go, it's clear on our website, it's clear in so much of our branding and digital comms that we push out. And so, until it becomes clear that we need to pivot away from one or the other of those, then we're going to keep the pedal to the metal, doing at a high level both of those initiatives. So,
and I think, obviously you guys thought this out well, because the more we talk about it, the more you learn about the GGMF, is that it embodies guns very well. And for the sheer fact, like you said, give people the experience of being able to fly, or doing that mentorship of giving people the opportunity. I can think of one specific experience. I was a freshly minted IP. One of the young wingmen walks up to Guns then he's like, Guns, I have a question about safety valves, and safety valves are an F-16 specific thing. They're unclassified. It is effectively a decision matrix that if you haven't thought about it, at least for me, about like 50 times, it doesn't make sense. So young wingman's like, hey, I don't understand these safety valves. And Guns is like, hey, Vader, why don't you take an opportunity to teach him this? And in all reality, it was me talking to the wingman, and Guns was just kind of sidebar listening to make sure I didn't go wild dingo. But he, instead of just Guns being a better instructor than me, taking the lead and doing it, he gave me as a young instructor the opportunity to flex my IP abilities for the student and learn that and gain that experience. Because again, if Guns did it, it was just going to keep Guns good and me not as good. And that was one of the chances for me to get better. So I think it's great because, again, like you said, I mean, I flew airplanes because my grandma's brother was a sergeant major in the Army, and his son flew F-16s. So I had that exposure a little bit to where I was like, yeah, I'm going to go fly airplanes if I'm lucky. So you can imagine people who don't have those kind of family experiences, but now having this opportunity to show them like you can do it. It's not a pipe dream. It's very much reality. So it's great to see that and give people those chances.
Yeah, I think just one other comment. I think, in regards to what's been said about the two missions so far, where, at times it may feel like they're different. I feel like they're closely linked and that they're beneficial. They're mutually beneficial. So when we support, those young guys or gals that are pursuing an aviation career, my hope and one of the models that I want to help create here is that one day, if that kid is in need, then we're the first person they think of to call, because we also support veteran families. And I want, if those young people have families or friends connected to them who are in need and their military families, I want them to know about Guns Guerin. And on the other side of that coin, if we're supporting a veteran family or military family in need, and there's a young person in their sphere of influence that wants to pursue aviation because they heard the story about guns. I mean, there's just so many, it's kind of like a Venn diagram, if you will. And I think it's only a win for GGMF to have the two missions that do work in tandem, in my opinion. So,
well, I'm glad to hear that. Baldy and Croc, how are you guys kind of balancing? Like, I mean, obviously as a full-time guardsman trying to go through a F-15 CTX and do a whole podcast, like how are you guys balancing the full-time job plus GGMF? Like, how does that look for you guys?
I'm perfect at it.
Nice. Nailing it as usual.
Croc, you go first.
Well, I mean, I don't think, I think if I viewed this as a job, it would be difficult. Like, my job is to fly, for American Airlines and to fly, F-16s in the reserves. And that is, as much as you love it, like it still is like a job at times that you have to work hard at. And this is more of like a day-to-day passion of making sure that like people don't forget who Guns was. And the more you have people that like reach out and are in need, it's not easy. Like, I wish there was more time in a day, but I think a lot of it is building like a really good team around you. So being able to say, I've always been a single seat fighter pilot that can do a lot of things by myself, but this is a good example of a time that like I've really relied on other people that know more about this space than I do. So, being able to trust the vision and the strategy that Sam and some of our other subcontractors have for building a brand and being able to reach out and developing like a good donor base. I think at some point you can't necessarily like control everything. You got to say, all right, you guys know the vision, like go out there and do it. And they've done an awesome job. And, being able to reach out to the people that are in need on a day-to-day basis, like with Kelly and with Baldy, that gives you all the motivation that you need to continue to do it. I mean, there was a family that reached out, from San Diego that they were, they were part of a tragic loss of, there were several crashes like within this squadron. So we're talking, they reach out and they say within the last 6 months, we've had 3 different instances, and like essentially half of our squadron has disappeared. And they were reaching out to us to help like bridge the gap of being able to help with groceries, help with the house payment, help with childcare. And you hear that, man, and like your heart's just broken. And it's like, dude, that's, I can remember playing golf with guns and him being like, dude, let's go back to my basement and drink a beer. And it's like, well, it's late. And he's like, who cares, man? Let's talk, like, let's hang out. Like, he was always willing to give like whatever was required based off the need that was put in front of him, whether it was like developing better fighter pilots, developing better friendships, developing better relationships. And so I take a lot of that like into the way that I handle GGMF. It's like, man, the need's always going to be there. And so I'm going to continue to give. And in the times that I don't have the time or the capacity, like we'll bring someone else on that has the same passion, like Sam. There's a lot of bros within the squadron that sit on the board of directors that help. So that's the best balancing act I've found up to this point, is relying on other people that know his story and want to help.
Yeah. What about you, Baldy?
Yeah, no, I mean, I kind of echo that. It's difficult. I mean, to say that it's easy to balance, the flying fighter jets, right? And, or for us, the airline world, and then balancing home life and then doing the GGMF. I mean, it's nonstop. We both love flying a lot, just like you do, Vader, which is why we're still doing it. There's a lot of reward in that. But to a certain degree, it's still a job, right? I mean, it's a lot of fun, but it's also like, it's a lot of work. I mean, if anybody's ever listened to other podcasts or had, conversations about the life of a fighter pilot, it's very challenging, let alone and getting into the airline world as well, or running any kind of business. But this is rewarding, right? So it's easy to, in my mind, be like, hey, I'm going to devote some time to the GGMF, to the foundation, because it's such a good thing and it's so rewarding. Like Sam was saying, when you hear the stories that you hear, you're like, I want to do something, and because of the work that we've done, we can, which is such like a great thing. And then all of that, like in like the memory, in a very positive memory of who Guns was, which is a great thing as well. And yeah, it's a lot of work. Of course, it's a lot of work. Like, and I feel like, if we were to talk later about, Croc and I, just when we were year one of this organization, I mean, it was a lot of work. I mean, we didn't have Sam. We didn't, I was making Facebook posts and I was like, I don't even use Facebook, so it's like, and I don't have any marketing skills, it's like, so it was a total crapshoot, right? But we did the best we could. We made it work, and we did well enough to be able to raise some money to be able to and have conversations with people like Sam and some of our other subcontractors, essentially to be like, we need to do better. We can do better. Let's do the work to do better. And it has allowed us to have a more professional face, to do well in the organization, to be able to raise more money, get more people involved who want to be a part of it because of how the mission resonates and who Guns was, how it resonates. And that, again, yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's not work, it's a lot of fun to do it. As sad as it is that we've lost our friend, this is a very positive and rewarding thing, like moving forward. And, we want it to last forever because that's how we want to remember him. So,
yeah. And I hope it does. And it's gotta, it's gotta be tough at that point to put it down. It's gotta be tough to kind of let go of the reins a little bit or not be as busy with it, because it does mean, so much, and it's got such a important, origin, that kind of, created the process. Sam, how has it kind of getting into the organization a little later, but then kind of just experiencing how much, there is behind the GGMF and the people there. Was that pretty inspiring when you showed up?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, quite frankly, I've been acquainted with the organization from the beginning, and to a certain degree, I mean, I had loads of conversations with Croc about it far before I was formally involved, I guess you could say. But yeah, I mean, again, it boils down to, I mean, I'll just say this: like, I never met guns, but after hearing Baldy and Croc and talking to Kelly on the phone, I mean, it's like, yeah, I'm going to devote time to this, and I'll continue to devote time to it. Long after they don't need me anymore here. I mean, I don't know when that would happen, but it's a big deal. It's no small thing. It's incredibly fulfilling, like these guys have said. Yes, it occupies a lot of my time and a lot of my bandwidth, but I had that conversation with another one of our team members recently. We just talked about how much we care about this organization. And of course, we want that care to be reflected in the work we do, whether it's relationship building with donors or a Facebook post or a golf event. But we don't care because we're getting paid to care. We care because we see the impact and the effect of this foundation on the lives of people in need. And it sounds maybe a little bit cliche or to say it that way, but it's because it's true. And the cliches are often more true than we want to give them credit for. And it's just, it's on a personal level, work aside, being affiliated with this has just been a big boost to me. And I'm not from a military background at all, but I've really grown to love everything I've learned about the way these men relate to one another and the way that they care for people around them in need. It's a big deal. I've said that a couple times, but yeah, honored to be in the role that I'm in.
So what's kind of on the horizon? Obviously, you guys have a golf tournament coming up pretty soon, and then what's kind of the next 12 months look like for GGMF?
Yeah, is that a question for me or Croc?
Whoever's ready to answer it. Yeah,
I'll spearhead it and then let Croc jump in. A big need that's kind of been unearthed since we've been working to build this thing is just the impact of active duty on mental health for our veterans. And mental health is, in a lot of spheres, still kind of a taboo topic or something that we don't really want to discuss. But it's one that Croc and the rest of this team at GGMF has wanted to take on head on, if you will. And so the goal for the next 12 months really is to develop systems and strategies to equip veterans with a mental health illness or issue, develop ways to get them help that they need quickly, whether that be counseling or therapy. That's the next big challenge for us here, and we aim to take it on. So I know Croc can probably speak to that with a little bit more detail than I can. But.
Yeah, so through one of our partnerships that we have set up. So, you talk about like how you effectively grow an organization that's like fairly young. So, we grow it like on the level of like relationship building, like there's people like yourself, Vader, that knew who Guns was. So we can effectively communicate to you, this is what our mission is, this is how we're doing it. And you knew the person. And so, yep, you want to be a part of it. We can effectively build relationships with people that didn't know him, like on a personal level, like, hey, and we've done that. And that's where you get like your people who give donations on a monthly basis, or they come out to the golf tournament and hang out and they want to be a part of it. And then there's like the corporate and business side of it, where you find other businesses who want to support veterans. And so one of the companies that we were talking to said, yeah, like we want to be a part of the story that you guys have. And, one of the things that we really care about is, veteran mental health. And so we had been at that same time, like in tandem, looking at like the different requests that were coming in for people that needed help. And one of the biggest things that people were saying they wanted help with were mental health issues like PTSD, depression, anxiety, TBI, all those things that like again, like Sam said, have been pretty taboo to talk about. But when you get outside of a squadron construct, like people, like on a day-to-day basis, when you're done serving in the military, it's something that a lot of people deal with and they need help with. And it's not like something that you can instantly give to, where it's like, hey, I lost a family member, or hey, I lost my, extremity, my leg, like on a deployment, and I need help with a wheelchair. It's something that's like, a mental health issue that you might need help with, that is very unseen unless you talk about it, I guess, is the bottom line. And so our initiative for the next 12 months is really to devote a lot of time and effort into helping people tell their stories to us, and then giving them the help that they need. And so we have partnered with that outside agency, and basically it'll be like exactly like what Sam said, group therapy, counseling, referring any medical costs, like we'll help cover that. And on a month-to-month basis, we hope to do that for about 12 to 15 veterans a month, is our goal. So we're trying to raise $100,000 for that one initiative this next year, in partnership with these guys that brought the need to our attention, and then really just see where it goes from there. So it's a clear need, and now we're trying to pivot and respond to that need, like in a responsible way.
I think it's a very good use of time, effort, and funds. A couple of years back, there was the whole exposure, kind of the highlighting of every day 22 veterans commit suicide. So mental health is a huge problem when we're talking about veterans, because the family, the community that you build in the military, you separate and then it's gone. And
Yep.
without people to help out and help that transition, it's very important and it's necessary. So I'm glad that you guys are working on that. Well, we gotta get going in a second. I think Baldy's Wi-Fi is struggling. But so what can the Kodiak Shack audience kind of help out with? How can they reach out? How can they contact and help out in any way?
Yeah, so you'll see on our website and like through our social media, if you follow us on Facebook or Instagram at Guns Garen, you'll start seeing a lot of stuff about that veteran mental health initiative. So I encourage people to go read about that and read about some of the challenges that veterans are having on a day-to-day basis with mental health issues. I would encourage people to just visit our website in general, gunsgaren.com. And then if they would like to reach out via email, they can email us at contact@gunsgaren.com. And that'll go straight to our website email. And they can check out our YouTube as well, which is @GunsGaren is the handle for that as well. So our YouTube channel. All are great ways to be involved. And then you'll see on there events that we have going on, or different fundraisers that we've got going, people that we've helped. It's a good way to stay connected with who we are and what we're doing.
Yeah, well, wonderful. Well, again, guys, I appreciate you guys taking the time and just sharing the GGMF, and then talking about guns a bit, because it's been a while since I've been able to kind of chat about guns. So it's been a good time.
Yeah.
But everybody out there for Kodiak Shack stuff, reach out, help out in any way you can, even if it's liking or sharing any of the GGMF content, and just increase their reach and their impact. And then if you want to contact Kodiak Shack, again, info@kodiakshack.com, and then the website kodiakshack.com, and we'll get some links and some kind of cross organizational stuff on the website for GGMF to help increase exposure. But thanks again, guys, for chatting, and I'm looking forward to hear more about what you guys are doing.
Sweet. Thanks, Vader.
All right.
Yeah, thanks, Vader.
Thanks, man.
See you.